Hi, welcome back guys. This is your sensei, back with another fanfiction. This is movie of What If Naruto Got Harem and JJK. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. They shot him. Really, it was a very nice bullet, Naruto mused, fast and deadly, through and through. He had a perfect view of the damn thing as it pierced his eye, burst through the back of his head and shot him dead. The last thing he heard was a scream, the cry of the woman he'd tried to save. The plastic bag of groceries he'd been carrying fell from his now nerveless hand and struck the ground, spilling cups of instant ramen to the concrete. His body joined them soon thereafter in a spasming heap, slumping down in the alleyway, before striking a brick wall, then sliding down all the way down to the ground. It didn't last, of course. Death never did these days. How irritating. In the end, the hole in his head was just that. An annoyance. 3 seconds. That was precisely how long it took for something to flicker inside him and something else to spark, forcing him to regenerate. He had no say in the matter. His body recognized the wound and attacked it as white blood cells would an illness. In a matter of moments he was up and thinking again. A full second faster than last week, just a little faster each time. At this rate he wouldn't even feel it anymore. Some would call that a blessing. To have functional immortality. He wasn't sure these days. It felt like a curse. With a world-weary sigh he blinked, felt his eye mend, and pushed himself upright. The unprofessional oath that followed turned more than a few heads, most those of the trio who'd put a bullet in him. They looked gobsmacked. No, that wasn't the right word. Horrified. Yes, that was it. He could see the nameless dread carved into their very souls as they watched was essentially a dead man stand up, dust himself off, wipe the blood off his face and smile. Sure, go for a walk. That's with a mugging gone wrong. Try to talk 3 bozos down. What's the worst that could happen? No matter the day, no matter the era, no matter the people, some things never changed. Well, some things did. Oi, do you have any idea how annoying that is? He dug a finger in his ear to no avail, the noise persisted and he had to raise his voice. My ears are gonna be ringing for hours now. I went a whole week without killing anyone, too. He stomped a foot down, producing a small crater underfoot. You ruined my streak, you know. He looked to the plastic bag containing his precious cups of instant ramen, now clutched by one of his would-be killers. Took my ramen, too. His gaze traced past them to the young woman they'd been accosting, huddled in the deepest, darkest corner she could find. She was a pretty young thing, blonde hair and blue eyes, her dark jeans ripped and blue jacket torn indecently near the shoulder, makeup smudged by tears. This seemed familiar. Unbidden found himself reminded of another girl he once knew long ago. She was no Ino Yamanaka, that much was certain, but there was a passing resemblance all the same. Enough to give him some pause. Maybe a distant descendant. He'd been around for a while. Still, he wasn't quite so far gone as to allow something like this to happen. And you tried to have your way with this poor girl. Can't let that slide. One of them dared to point their gun at him. Egal, what the hell are you? His head tilted to the right with a sickening crack, bending in a way no human should. Funny you should ask. His right hand flicked out, fingers crooking into claws. They caught the first man's stomach, some punk in a black hoodie who thought a gun made him a man and tore through the cotton like wet newspaper. Flesh proved just as yielding, as did muscle, bone and well, everything else, really. A single swipe of his hand flung him back against the wall with such force that he was torn apart. His severed halves struck the ground, still steaming in the cold, winter night. You know, I've been asking myself that for a while now. He considered his bloody fingers as his victims to be screamed. What am I? You live so long, and you start to forget things. Pretty sure I'm not a Jujutsu sorcerer as you know it. Jujiwa, an open palm bearing racing and flicked backward with lazy grace to obliterate the face of the would-be mugger who'd just spoken. His headless corpse slumped to the floor with a wet splat. His comrade cried out and he felt the faintest stirrings of what might have been pity in his chest. He turned back to regard the broken body as one might a crushed ant. He hadn't even bothered to get their name. 100 years ago, he might have found that sad. Now he could only muster a sigh and go through the motions. Oh, I'm sorry, he muttered. Was he your friend? That was 2 down, now 1 to go. But I'm no cursed spirit, right? He turned to face his whimpering final victim of the night and tapped a long finger to the side of his head as the terrified teenager looked on. I don't hate anyone, not even you. Does that make me a positive spirit, then? He thumbed his chin, still rambling. I'm pretty sure that's not a thing. The pistol came up again. Screw you. Sorry. Pearly white teeth flashed in a rueful grin. I tend to get chatty when I'm stressed out. Maybe I've lived too long. Come on, you can come up with a better retort than that, can't ya? The gun rose higher. Now, don't move. Or what? You'll pull the trigger. He sauntered forward, arms spread wide at his side. Because that worked out so well last time. Go on. He crooked a finger at his chin. Shoot me again, I ain't dead yet. When no such move was made he reached down and grabbed their gun, all but forcing it to his forehead. Come on now, you did it before, don't be shy. It's not like I've got unlimited lives or anything. Then again, his shadow came alive behind him, assuming the shape of a familiar beast bearing 9 tails. Maybe I do. One way to find out, eh? The gun barked. A hole sizzled through his head and closed a full 2 seconds later. Another second less. Would you look at that? He felt the grin stretch across his face. Seems you got some stones after all. What the hell, man? Hell, him. He let the man's gun go and thumbed his chin instead. Now it was a curious statement. I've never been. Heard it's pretty hot down there. Care to find out? They fired at him again, point blank. This time, he caught the round between his teeth and crushed it. Black metal always tasted awful. From there he lunged in and grabbed the last would-be mugger by the throat, teeth gone sharp and eyes blazing red. He could taste their fear. Of course they were afraid. Any sane man would be in this situation, and he knew why. It wasn't his smile or his immortality, or even his words that unnerved the poor bastard. It was the eyes. Not his, no. It was the eyes of his shadows, you see. The shadows themselves had eyes. So very many eyes, red and black and blue all over. They painted the walls and the floor of the alley, glaring down upon the dead man with one desire. So many eyes he couldn't count them all anymore. In truth, he'd given up trying a long time ago. Eyes for every life he'd collected over the years. Why so surprised? He tilted his head again, blonde hair falling over one eye. You should have known something like this would happen when you tried to force yourselves on that poor girl. Maybe they had, and maybe they just didn't care. Regardless, they tried to fire again, as if that would somehow change anything. Not a single round touched him as he swayed his head left, right, left again, letting the shots race away down the alley until the pistol clicked empty. Then reached round with his free hand, seized the barrel and most of the mugger's hand in his fist and crushed it. Broken metal and spent shells clattered to the floor, alongside bits of broken bone and blood. What's wrong? Naruto clicked his tongue, tutting softly. You were acting like Big Shot before. Big man with a gun. Where'd all that bravery go? Down the toilet, judging by the smell of urine. I didn't mean no harm, man. I swear. Swear to me. They couldn't, of course. At the end of the day, there are three people who could give me a hard time. Still holding his bleeding victim by the throat, he pivoted and smashed their back against a brick wall. One of them's my best buddy. The other's been sealed away for centuries. As to the last well, buddy, pal, compatter. He shook his head when the bleeding thug began to weep. Trust me when I say you're not that guy. You might have thought you were back there, but you ain't. You're really not that guy. You're no Gojo. You're no Sukuna. And you're not me. His fingers tightened around their throat, cutting off their air. Broken fingers scrabbled at his face, flailing harmlessly against whiskered cheeks. Said flailing intensified when he conjured a racing shuriken to his right hand and brought it to the man's chest. Begging became pleading, whimpering. Now, I'd dance on your grave, but you're not going to have one. He shifted his grip on them, hand clamping down over their mouth to muffle their screams. Too bad, so sad. Blood spattered the walls as his jutsu hit home. In that instant the man's body ceased to be, leaving him clutching his severed head. Death was instantaneous. He didn't feel a thing. Probably, satisfied with his sentence and the judgment he'd rendered, he tossed the man's head over his shoulder and fished a phone out his pocket. Keying in a familiar number, he set it to his ear and, Yo, Gojo, it happened again. Yeah, sorry about that. He winced a little at the reply. Hey, it's not my fault folks in this era are so damn squishy. A rueful sigh answered him. Yeah, of course I had a reason. There was a girl. She's about Ammonai's age. They were tearing her clothes off. That makes them bad guys. And besides, they shot me. No, don't tell Yutaheim. I don't want her nagging me. A decidedly feminine shout answered him and he swore and held the phone away from his ear. All right. I didn't know she was there. Was it now? Evidence, you say? He looked back to the alleyway and heaved a sigh as he regarded the three corpses sprawled within. Or rather, the bodies that had his fingerprints all over them. Evidence, fine. He closed down the phone and raised a hand. His silent shadow became monstrous once more, stemming from his outstretched palm. Damn it, this is gonna ruin my appetite. To any who looked on, it seemed impossible. His shadow became something massive, but not all of it, just his arm. Giant crimson jaws devoured the remains, one after the other with ruthless dispatch, leaving only scarlet stains behind. The cops would be scratching their heads come morning, but they would be none the wiser. There, no evidence. Stooping down, he retrieved the instant ramen cups, still secure in their plastic bag. By some miracle there was no blood on them. Good. Would have been ashamed to run all the way back to the convenience store. His prize in hand, he took a moment to survey his work, then nodded once. Not a bad walk, all things considered. He walked out the alley with a spring in his step, whistling a jaunty tune. Still felt like he was forgetting something. A muffled sob pricked at his ears, barely a gasp. Naruto craned his neck back, a blue eye gleaming over his shoulder. Right. He'd forgotten all about the girl. She was the reason he'd taken that bullet in the first place. He looked to the poor thing, still sat on her haunches, eyes terribly wide, her gaze locked onto as a frightened rabbit might a starving fox. Did he really look that scary? Common sense said he should kill her. Basic decency said he shouldn't. But she was a witness. He pressed a finger to his lips. SHHH. You didn't see anything, right? She nodded thrice, head bobbing rapidly. Really, this is why you kids shouldn't stay out so late. You gonna get up and leave, or? I don't think I can, sir. Her voice, when she finally spoke, held the faintest off accents. A foreigner. Only then did he notice the spreading scarlet stains on her chest and stomach, a puddle of blood beneath her legs as she clutched at herself. Hindsight was a cruel thing. He had dodged those bullets effortlessly back in the alleyway, evading them with ease. She hadn't. They must have ricocheted. It was bad luck on her part, rather rotten luck, really. Well, he couldn't leave that be now, could he? Her eyes grew wider still as he approached. Are you going to kill me, too? Kill you? Naruto dropped down on his haunches to regard her. Now why would I do that after going out of my way to save you? Seems a bit counterproductive if you ask me. She laughed a little, the noise emerged as a pained rasp. Blood bubbled up from her lips. You have a twisted sense of humor. I do. He nodded in return. It's something I've cultivated over hundreds of years. You want alive. Her hazy blue eyes met his. More than anything. ... Naruto considered her words for a long moment. Well, why not? What was the harm? He'd lived so many lives now. More than he could count. And not once had he tried to make more of himself. His stock of lives seemed endless sometimes, eternal even, after he'd fused with Kurama on that fateful day. Bari and Mode should have killed the both of them that day. Instead, two became one. And in becoming one, they saved the world, but damned themselves. He'd outlived the era of the shinobi and all that followed that, survived his family, his friends, his wife, and their children. Even the children of their children's children. In another few hundred years everyone he knew in this era would be dead and Jujutsu sorcerers would be forgotten, too. Was it so wrong to want a companion for that? One who wouldn't wither, grow old, and eventually die? Was it really? And besides, this one had a nice rack. Definitely not a motivating factor, no siree. All right, then. He smiled. Best brace yourself. The girl's brow furrowed. Brace myself for whack. Her words peaked into a startled shriek as he stabbed his hand deep into her chest, sheathing his arm up taut wrist. Blue eyes bulged, first with confusion, then horror. Yet she didn't die. He could have bitten her, of course, but he didn't like the taste of blood and biting was just so cliché. He was no vampire. Besides, she needed a new heart anyway. This one was already failing her. With a twist of his wrist, he flooded her body with amber chakra, neither wholly red nor gold, but a mad blend of the two, and tore his arm free. It would put her to sleep for a time, and when she awoke, he watched her fear warp into confusion, then awe as his wounds began to close when her wounds began to heal. What did you? I've given you a bit of my chakra. Straight into your heart. What's your name? Misty blue eyes softened as sleep took her. Naruto leaned close to listen. She told him. Toji. Fushiguro looked up from his seat with a rueful sigh. What kid? He waved the ticket in his hand and looked down the stands to the racing boats below. Can't you let a man gamble in peace? Peace? Huh. Yeah, right. The words rang hollow even as he said them. The being before him he hesitated to call this thing human on a good day didn't know the meaning of the word. He lived by his whims and little else, a moral code few could comprehend, one that let him do as he pleased, when he pleased, how he pleased. Eccentric. That was one way to describe him. If there was a god of fashion somewhere out there, they'd taken one look at Naruto Uzumaki and promptly given up. He was wearing that deep blue trench coat of his as always, paired with a white shirt and a black vest over which he'd thrown an even uglier orange tie. His pants were no exception. Today he'd chosen a ghastly mix of bright orange blended with red so bright it threatened to give him a migraine. Such an eyesore. Why he wore the getup in the first place baffled him. Gonna play dumb. The man flung himself down into the seat opposite him with a laugh and crossed one leg over another. That's fine. How's your wife? A muscle jumped in Toji's jaw. Leave her out of this. Come on, don't be like that. I saved her life. He had. Megumi's mother still lived because of him. It was the only reason they weren't duking it out in Shibuya right now. He owed this guy, yet he hated him. Truth be told, Naruto was probably the closest thing he had to a friend these days, but he also wanted to kill him. The duality of it all wasn't lost on him. They could never truly be friends, but they weren't enemies either. What did that make them, then? Rivals. Frenemies. What a useless word. The man before him ... he didn't even know if he was a man anymore. Not a cursed spirit, but not human, either. What was the old saying? It was right on the tip of his tongue. Duck about and find out. No, he was certain that wasn't it. Maybe swap the D and duck with an F. Ah, there it was. Outwardly, he didn't let any of his tension show, even as he looked his way. I hear you went for a walk. Naruto hummed a little. And I heard you're going to kill the star plasma vessel, Riko Amanai. Did you know she's my niece? Toji's blood turned to ice. I knew her parents rather well, you see. Naruto was still smiling, his expression utterly unchanged as he gazed down at the waters and the racing vessels below. They were good people. Good to me, too. Shame what happened to them, don't you think? The sorcerer killer shrugged one shoulder. I wouldn't know anything about that. HMHMHMM. He hummed his agreement. I know you don't. You know, I always suspected the Time Vessel Association had a hand in their deaths, but I couldn't prove anything at the time, so I asked Kuroi to keep a close eye on her. Just in case. He made a pinching motion with his fingers. And now they've hired you to finish what they started so long ago. They're persistent little CC croaches, I'll give you that. The laughter that followed held no edge at all, as though they were discussing something as banal as the weather. Maybe I should pay them a visit once this mess is over. Something's off. Toji's instincts blared a warning. Something's off. Naruto tilted his head at him and smiled. Something's off. His grin grew just so, curling into the hint of a sneer. But enough about the past. Let's talk about the future. The blonde bastard grinned and clapped his hands, bringing him back to the present moment. You're right, I did go on a very enthusiastic walk last night. Look what I found. He burst to his feet and swept an arm back. Toji followed the motion with one eye, wondering what he was getting at. There was a pretty blonde woman stood behind them, clad in a brown and red uniform he didn't recognize. Quite the wreck. She knew it too. Her outfit only made it worse and squirmed under his gaze. None of that bothered Toji. No, he found himself preoccupied with a far more alarming concern. He hadn't even sensed her, as if she had no presence at all. Stranger still, her eyes were a piercing shade of bloody red, and yet no one around them even seemed to notice it. The girl wasn't human, either. Naruto smiled. Toji, meet Sarah's Victoria. I suppose you could say she's my assistant. She looked him in the eye, squeaked once, and bowed her head. Hello, sir. Toji frowned. She has an accent. She's from abroad. England, I think. His brow furrowed yet further. You didn't have her a week ago. What can I say? Naruto's grin grew further still, fangs flashing in the light. She was a recent hire. A hand waved. Go get yourself a drink, police girl. We'll be a bit. Sarah didn't need to be told twice, she scarpered. Naruto sank back into his seat with a pleased sigh. Good girl. Has potential. Might get her a cannon. Toji scoffed. Sounded like something he would do. And yet you made her like you. I did. He replied readily. It was that or let her die. I've always been a softie. Is that why you came to threaten me? Because you've gone soft. Oh, no. Naruto's grin practically split his face. If I was going to threaten you, I'd kidnap your family. Every fiber of Toji's being tensed as he imagined it. Had he a weapon to hand, he would have driven it through the blonde's skull. But he didn't. Not at the moment. He could only glare. But I haven't done that. A long finger rose and flicked his forehead. There are some lines even I won't cross. You should be grateful for that. Then why the hell are you here? To give you a little lesson before the games begin. You see, I love humanity. Really, I do. He held up a hand, letting wind dance across his fingertips. As a species, the human race has created some truly astounding things, creations I'd never even dream of. But sometimes I look at you people, and I see monkeys. The smile, ever present until this moment, finally faded. So many of them shriek and scream and shout, all the while throwing their own shit at one another. Jujutsu sorcerers aren't much better. So few of you, any of you, truly value your lives. It's a wonderful thing to live a life, a good life, a full life. Toji sighed at that, not liking the sudden twist in their conversation. A life is a life. Most folks only get to one. On that we agree. Naruto reached over and gave his shoulder a brisk pat, all but clapping him on the back. I'm so glad you understand. Megumi could stand to learn a thing or two from you. It's my belief that everyone deserves 2 chances in life. They're born with one. They're offered another when they screw up. However, without warning he squeezed, fingers biting deep into his collarbone. There are no third chances. Those horrid red eyes seared into his soul for a long moment, his lazy face unusually stern. You have a fine son, don't let him grow up without a father. Take it from someone who did. That's not a life you want for him. He clicked his tongue and looked away. Damn monster. Bloody superhuman. Came the immediate retort. I mean it, Toji. His old adversary let him go, but the scathing glare remained. I like you. You're fun to fight, and I enjoy drinking with you. So take those winnings from gambling and enjoy it. Get your wife and son something nice. Take this job though ... and we're going to have a problem. You might not get out alive. You might surprise Gojo and Geto. Sage knows they've never been humbled before. I have, which is why it won't surprise me. Hear that? That's a threat. The wind picked up suddenly, forcing Toji to shield his face. When he looked back, Naruto and his so-called police girl were nowhere to be found. Not a trace of them remained. Wait, he'd said winnings earlier. How did he know he'd win? Had he anticipated the outcome? A horn sounded as the boat he was betting on crossed the finish line ... I in first place. Toji looked down at his now winning ticket and sighed. Damn it. Something stirred in the darkness. Eyes opened in the bleak gloom. A faint flicker of memory. It's finally starting. So many emotions. Excitement. Relief. Joy. Fun. 000. Tell me you did not turn that girl. All right. Naruto clasped both hands behind his head and offered a beatific smile as he sprawled in the sun. I didn't turn that girl, Iori. Her foot began to tap beside his skull. Naruto. Yes. A stern finger dug down into his skull, seeking brain matter. He creaked an eye open and grinned up at its owner from where he lay without fear. How could he possibly be afraid of someone who looked so angry and simultaneously looked so adorable? Gojo was right in that regard. Jujutsu really was just too easy to rile up. Sure, she was feisty through and through and not afraid to give you a pierce of her mind and a proper tongue lashing. Besides, when pressed, it was one of the many reasons he enjoyed teasing her so. Even now, when she looked like she wanted nothing more than to kick him in the head. After all, what was life without a little laughter? Boring was what it was, hence the very enthusiastic walks. That was both part and parcel why he'd paid Toji a visit. He was curious to see how his old adversary would react. Once he made move, be it the right or wrong regardless, the next few days promised to be entertaining for him. He craved it, you see. When you couldn't die, you found all sorts of ways to entertain yourself. Are you even listening to me? Oh dear. Jujutsu was shaking him now. Such an excitable girl. He really hadn't been paying attention again. It was easy to get loose in his thoughts these days. Gotta watch that. What? He dug a finger in his ear and uttered a jaw-popping yawn. To be fair, I don't know what I am anymore. As a result, neither does she. He flicked a thumb over his shoulder where a dutiful Cirrus stood behind him in silent vigil. It all balances out, really. Cirrus heaved a sigh behind him. It really doesn't, master. No need to call me that. He leaned his head back with a grin, letting himself dangle from Iori's grasp like a puppet with its strings cut. How are we feeling? She squirmed a little. I feel restless, unsure. He reached up to tweak Yutaheim's nose, drawing an outraged squeak from the shrine maiden, whom he summarily spoke over. It's only been a few days and you haven't had your first taste of real combat. It will soon. She blinked owlishly at him, all naive innocence. What makes you so sure? His eyes twinkled, anticipating the challenge to come. Call it intuition. You'll see. No. Yutaheim dropped him to thrust a finger at his fellow blonde. One of you is bad enough, we don't need a second. You will behave properly. The last thing we need is another cursed spirit causing havoc. Hey. He rose on his haunches and poked her stomach, drawing a startled laugh from her. I'm no cursed spirit. I'm a shinobi. I killed a lot of people to get this title and I deserve to be called as such. If looks could kill, he would be a smoldering pile of ashes at Yutaheim's feet. Thankfully they didn't and he could be as cheeky as he wished. Always, what's wrong? Even a send Satoru after me. His grin grew. That might work ... if we weren't best friends. That blasted Gojo. He heard footsteps behind on the shrine steps behind them. Somebody mentioned my name. It's Yutaheim. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Yutaheim took one look at the approaching sorcerer, flung up her arms. Enough. I'm going on ahead before you two give me another migraine or worse. Naruto righted himself with a bemused noise. Same time next week. She flipped him off. Rot in hell and die. Love you too. A pebble caromed harmlessly off his head. He laughed at it. Gojo reached him not a moment later. Awa, you're leaving. Don't I get a goodbye kiss? Yutaheim beat feet and scarpered with an utterly unprofessional oath unbefitting of a shrine maiden. You know only nags because she worries about you. Naruto snorted. I'm aware. It's just too fun to poke and prod her. Gojo elbowed him. Careful you don't prod too much and make her snap. She's liable to jump you. I think I can handle one angry girl. Unless you're talking about a different kind of jumping. Wouldn't mind that. His old friend feigned a gasp and clutched at his chest. Do you think she's cheating on me? Say it ain't so. My heart is broken. I can't go on. Naruto bit his lip to stifle a snicker, only to fail when Gojo started chuckled. With that, the floodgates opened, the dam burst, and they were doomed. In a matter of moments they were cackling outright, clapping each other on the back as they doubled over, shoulders shaking with uncontained mirth. All the while a baffled Cirrus looked on in utter bewilderment. Poor girl, she didn't understand yet. She would one day. Laughter was the spice of life, and when you had nothing but eternity to look forward to, you found amusement where you could. HMHMMHMMM. Gojo hummed out one last laugh and straightened up, his gaze strained to Cirrus. So, this is your new accomplice, is it? Cirrus stiffened under his smile with a squeak. She is. Naruto preened at her. Say hello, police girl. She sighed. You're not going to let that nickname drop anytime soon, are you? No. His smile stretched in a shit-eating grin. No, I am not. Gojo waved him on. Walk with me a bit. Naruto shrugged. Wasn't like he had anything better to do. As when they turned set out toward the steps of the shrine, traveling upon its rigid red arches. It was under the shadow of one such arch that his equal finally stopped smiling. Is that girl gonna be a problem? Not at all. Cirrus is good people. Belatedly he noticed something, or rather the lack of someone beside him. You came alone. No Shoko today. Nah, Gojo waved a hand. The higher-ups don't want to send her on a dangerous mission like this. She's too valuable. Which could only mean one thing. So I'm guessing Guido's guarding Ammonai right now. He is. A young man's nod confirmed his concerns. Better safe than sorry after Q's little ambush back in the city. Something wrong. He shrugged. Just a feeling. You should be careful. What's this? Gojo tilted his sunglasses down as they walked, eyes sparkling with childish mirth. Is that actual concern I see? For little Almi. Why, untouched. Ayak. He recoiled as an open palm struck the back of his head with a harsh smack, leaving a swollen red welt behind in its wake. He clutched at it with a pout. What was that for? You need to focus more on your limitless technique. I was able to get through that time. Stingy. Lazy. He countered. You need to try harder. Your defense should be automatic. Why? Came the immediate retort. I'm the strongest out there. No one can touch me. Naruto quirked a blonde brow his way and he amended his statement with a sullen sigh, planting both hands in his pockets as his shoulders slouched. Well, almost no one. You're the exception to the rule. Because I'm broken. Gojo tittered. Definitely broken. That remained to be seen. Once Gojo awakened and fully mastered his abilities, he'd put him through his paces and then some. That would be a real right. Something to look forward to. Kurama would have called him selfish for that. Maybe it was. But someone like Gojo only came around once in a lifetime. Although, a thought occurred to him, and on a whim, he pursued it. You know, I've always wondered about something. What's that? He paused on the step above Gojo and turned to face him fully. Who do you think's stronger, me or you? A sudden gust of whirling wind whipped through the shrine, carrying swirling leaves with it. There it was. God's smug smile flickered for a split second, and his confidence, too. He planted his foot on the next step and, he waved a hand, shattering the tension. let's call it a tie. I'd rather not fight you at all, really. His smile softened. Well, at least you're honest. Speaking of honest, is that crazy girl still after you? He glanced back to Cirrus, still maintaining a dutiful distance behind them. She's not going to be happy that you've made yourself a friend. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose to stifle a headache of his own. Don't remind me. Now there was a can of worms he'd have to deal with sooner or later. Hopefully later. He wasn't in the mood for it this year. So, he asked apropos of nothing. Has anyone tried to kill Amani yet? Yup, came the chipper response. Already fended off some annoying bastards from the Q organization. Still got another day or so of it before she merges with Tenjin. Why? No reason. Is that so? Gojo granted him a Cheshire grin and elbowed his ribs. Afraid your little niece will fall for us. No, he looked to the clouds high above. Just a feeling. Don't let your guard down. Well, if you're that bored, why not come with us? The more the merrier. He nearly said no out of habit, if nothing else. Then again, sure, why not? It'll tick off your bosses, though. Bah, let the higher-ups gripe. This'll be fun. Unclay. Riko Amani was an energetic girl, loud and excitable. To be frank, Gojo had found her more than a little annoying at first. He still hadn't forgotten or forgiven that smack she'd given him earlier. His own fault for letting Limitless down, he suppose, but still. The girl had spunk and spirit in spades, almost too much. At first he had thought that was all she was, just another annoying girl to protect. It had taken time to ferret out who she really underneath it all, to see the underlying fragility that defined her soul. You wouldn't know it the way she rushed Naruto. The blonde brawler caught her under the arms, swept her up and around, then held her to his chest. There's my niece. How are we doing today? I'm doing great. But where have you been? It's been 3 years. He fobbed her off with an excuse Gojo didn't quite catch. Alright. I'll forgive you this once. Evidently satisfied, Amani snuggled into her uncle's chest, making happy noises as they looked on. Gojo watched it all, listening with half an ear. This was a girl who would be erased in 2 days' time, all traces of her wiped away. Something in his heart lurched at the thought. It didn't seem fair. She should have hopes and dreams, ambitions. She should be meant for so much more. Surely she deserved a choice, at the very least. She should be able to choose, to take her life in her own hands. And if she chose not to be erased, not to merge with Tenjin. He looked to Koroi, the girl's maid, saw the tears in her eyes. Even Geto seemed saddened by the sight before them. Did Naruto really want this girl to be sacrificed? Or did he have something else in mind? When did he get so damned attached? The stage was set. The pieces were prepared. Now, then let the games begin. Geto was wary. Not of Gojo, naturally. Really, why would he ever be? His old friend had done nothing to rouse his own deeply rooted paranoia today, nor Amani or Kuroi. Not even that silly police girl. They were all harmless to him, at least. He watched them race across the sand with a faintly bemused smile, silently smirking at their antics. It was a smile he didn't quite feel. Instead, he found his attention drawn to the only other male in their little party the madman currently sitting beside him. He was the one who truly concerned him. Because you see, Naruto Uzumaki reeked of death. And not just of the human sort, or no, he'd killed curses, so many of them that the smell had seeped into his very soul. The scent clung to him like a miasma, a stench only he could discern. He, whose very technique involved capturing and controlling curses, a miasma so pungent it made him want to gag. And yet no one seemed to notice. Riko Amani and Masato Kuroi, or even Satoru Gojo himself. The older man made a bemused noise. At least buy me a drink before you undress me with your eyes. Geto choked on his own spit. Why, kidding. I'm just kidding. The colorfully clad blonde waved a hand and took a long swig from the strange orange gourd he'd brought with him. Look, if you're having trouble or need someone to talk to, here's my card. He flicked a blood-red rectangle from his sleeve into his hand, etched with black letters. Seems you've got a lot going on in that head of yours. Several things, really. Key among them. What are you? Bored? Presently. Naruto looked to Gojo and Amani playing in the water. One smacked the other with a sea cucumber and down they went, laughing and shrieking like a pair of schoolchildren. If you're going to glare at me like that, then do something interesting. That's surprising. He watched the laughing duo drag Kuroi in after them and smirked. She's a screamer, you know. Geto tried to rally. Who do you think? Naruto waggled a blonde brow at him. Kuroi. He felt his face blaze red. Yup. The monster smacked his lips with an audible pop. Best lay I've had in the last 100 years. You should try it sometime. Having somebody around really takes the edge off. He slung an arm around his shoulder, keeping him from running away. You're too pent up. Maybe get yourself laid. It does wonders for the mind, if not the body. Find yourself a nice girl and settle down. The heat spiked down his neck. Next. I don't need your advice. A clawed finger tapped his wrist and the world went cold. You really do. Geto looked to Riko's purported uncle and froze where he sat. Naruto's facade had fallen away, the carefully careless act he'd cultivated cast aside. In its place was a look of pure steel. You know, he rumbled, voice dropping an octave, my mentor Jiraiya, he acted like a lech. His enemies never took him seriously. Me, I'm a little different. Everyone thinks a bastard is harmless. Everyone underestimates someone who just doesn't seem to care. But I do care. That's the problem. I care so damn much it hurts. Why do you think I'm taking the time to talk with you? What's wrong? The bemused blonde gave him a nudge. Fox got your tongue. When he didn't answer, the whiskered warrior released him and leaned back. You think you know what a monster is, what a curse can do. You'll have no idea. One day you will, and you'll wish you never knew. He shifted aside, subtly pulling cursed energy into his hand on the off chance this lunatic decided to attack. Why tell me this? Why not? The slightest of shrugs was his reward. Because you're interesting. I already know what Gojo will be, but you. A clawed finger wagged in his face. I can't see what you'll become. He looked back to the beach where even poor Sirius had been drawn into the fray now, and his weary face lit with a small smile. When you've lived as long as I have, you amuse yourself as best you can. You find reasons to live. Guido tucked both knees into his chest. And when you can't, you make them. A bright iris winked his way. Humans are fascinating creatures, don't you think? His gaze swiveled back to the sea and the endless bounty beyond. I hate some of them, even call them monkeys at times, but I love others. After all, I used to be mortal long ago. He raised a hand, letting the light splay over it. Even now my memories of those days are hazy. It feels like I lose more of them every year. But it's people like you and him that make me curious again. You're on the brink of a metamorphosis, Guido, even if you don't realize it. I wonder which way you'll turn. For a fleeting moment, Guido thought he almost understood. Loneliness was a burden known only by the strong. Small wonder he gravitated to him and Gu. But enough about little Almi, and enough with being serious for one day. And then Naruto facade slipped back into place, as though it had been there all along. You are young. Enjoy your youth. The blonde grabbed his shoulder. And go swimming. He tossed him in. Naruto laughed, watching Guido flounder helplessly in the water. He kept smiling, even as he sent a thought inward. Are they still watching us, Kurama? And they haven't moved in the last 5 minutes. Yup. Must be pretty brave ... or stupid. Probably both. Yup. Well, let's not keep them waiting. Is it Urazu or Yuki, I wonder? Gojo could keep an eye on Riko until they flew back. And when they did, he needed to have a word with Tenjin about her. Habits. But until then, he might as well kill some time. Wasn't like he had anything better to do while Toji was cooling his heels. And so he stood, brushed the sand from his coat, shrugged once and set a hand to the side of his mouth. Be right back. Huh? Gojo called after him. Where you going? He waved one hand over his shoulder, already gone. For a walk. Gojo's sigh echoed in the silence that followed. Fine. Don't make too much of a mess. Whatever you say, best buddy. Planting both hands in his pockets, he sauntered away with a merry whistle in search of his prize. It wasn't hard to find them, they weren't making any effort to hide. He located them less than a block away, perched on the rooftop of a nearby apartment complex. Just far enough to remain unseen, yet close enough to intervene should they deem it necessary. He had his fair share of allies, admirers, and enemies. Reality is often disappointing. In short order, he found his little voyeur. It was not who he had expected. Not at all. Rather than old friend or amusing adversary, he himself facing a dark-haired woman wearing a dark maroon blouse alongside faded blue jeans and pale shoes. She looked downright normal. Right until he beheld her blank eyes and scarred forehead. The very instant he did, his smile died an ugly death. Ah, and here I was hoping Yuki had come to visit. Whiskered cheeks dimpled in a scowl. Hello, Kenjaku, you little leech. I thought you knew better. Whose life did you snuff out this time? No one at all. The woman smiled in return, though it didn't reach her eyes. She was already dead before I took her body. When did you notice me? A while ago. Why are you here? She only smiled, merely observing. Oh, no, not having that. That girl is my niece. He loomed over the monster, masquerading as a woman. What your plans for her are, drop them. She's one of yours, then. The ancient cursed spirit looked past him to the beach below. A pity, and I was so curious to see what Tenjin would become without her ... She would have been something wonderful. A sudden gust of wind burst between them, carrying dead leaves with it. Two monsters gazed upon one another. ... You really think you've figured everything out, don't you? But you haven't. Kenjaku tilted her head. And what makes you say that? Because his lips moved slowly, mouthing the words. I know all about your. The rest were stolen away by another gust of wind. The cursed spirit before him went deadly still, eyes growing wide. When did you ... How did? I've been around longer than you. Don't test me. It won't end well. Please test me. I'm so bored. It's true, I've been cultivating a rather interesting experiment. She touched one hand to her cheek. This body was a necessary sacrifice to that end. You could have been a part of it, you know. A dark tongue flitted out, licking her lips. I would have preferred you as my partner rather than that. Louse. Pass. He swiftly crossed both arms before his chest, forming the distinctive shape of an X hard pass. Sukuna will return when he's good and ready, with or without your meddling. I'll talk with my old friend then. Not before. There was something in her smile now, however, that irked him further. You're getting too big for your britches again, Kenjaku. I've let you live because this world would be boring without a little chaos. Don't go mistaking my mercy for naivete, nor my laziness for generosity. ... As you wish. I shall withdraw for now. A shame I can't say the same for your comrade. The barb stung. You leave Toji to me. Now scram. Very well, she sighed. I can see when I'm not wanted. An awful thought occurred to Naruto before she could escape. One last thing, Kenjaku. Don't touch Guido. Find another shell for yourself. My, she touched one hand to her face, the corner of her mouth twisting in a dead smile. So demanding today. But I'm afraid I won't be able to do that act. A spike of ancient killing intent drove the cursed spirit down to one knee. When she tried to stand, he drove an iron spike through her thigh, pinning her to the street. A savage twist broke it off several inches well above the wound, ensuring the mad puppeteer and his puppet body wouldn't be able to escape. Only then did he deign to look down on the wretch. Don't get CCKY, you inferior creature. Is that a threat, old friend? Friend. The notion appalled Naruto, so much so that he finally let himself smile then, revealing row upon row of sharp teeth. We've never been friends. A pity. The entity's smile faded. You do realize, of course, that this mean war. Is that what you're calling this? A low chuckle rumbled in his throat. Bring them, then. Jogo, Hanami, Mahito, and all the pawns you can find. He ticked them down on the fingers of his free hand. I'll kill you all. It won't be fast. It won't be quick, and it won't be pretty. But if you don't believe me, a blur flickered past his head, faster than the leech could see. Naruto reappeared at his flank and walked past him, twirling the top of his skull over one finger, leaving the living corpse's brain exposed to the elements. Rivulets of blackened blood ran down Kenjaku's skull, spilling across his startled visage like so much rain. The startled noise Kenjaku made was sweet, sweet music to his ears. Here's a little taste of what will happen if you actually start a war with me and mine. He dropped the brain cap and whirled, pivoted, really, muscle clenching as one. There was no time for his foe to react, much less vacate the space. Clenched knuckles barreled into the cursed spirit's face. Know your place. Riko heard the explosion from afar. It was something akin to a distant sonic boom. One moment she'd been playing happily in the shallows with her new friends, the next a dull whump of sound filled the air and something shot across the horizon. If one were but to squint, they might have seen a distant figure crash into the sea far, far away. Thankfully she was quite human, and thus quite ignorant of what just transpired. In her mind, all was well, just as it should be. Speaking of well, where was her uncle? She saw Naruto a split second before he alighted in the shallows beside her. You're back. How was your walk? Enlightening. He granted her a parental smile and patted her head. Are we having fun, dear niece? Gojo frowned. That was pretty damn quick. Gito seconded him. Suspiciously so. Uncle only smiled at them. Gojo, Gito, both boys turned to face him. He grabbed them by their heads and CLONK. They slumped at his feet, quite thoroughly stunned. There, that's much better. Still smiling, he slung the two thoroughly dazed boys over his shoulders, then turned to face Miss Kuroi and her as a gobsmacked Cirrus looked on. Now, then, I believe we have a plane to catch. Naruto was no stranger to one-night stands. Moments of fleeting passion between strangers, two ships passing the night, and all that. They were his bread and butter. When you lived forever, it was little things like that sustained you. He couldn't have kids after all. Sage knew he'd tried, and tried, and tried, but it never seemed to work out. Which was a shame really, because he'd like to be a dad. For a long time it was all he'd ever wanted. Adopting just didn't have the same feel to it, you know, and while he was a regular patron of a great many orphanages only right, really, given his past he knew he wouldn't make a reliable father without a partner to help him raise said child. An eccentric uncle. Sure, great. He got to be a parent vicariously that way, and hand them back at the end of the day. Win-win. In all fairness, wasn't sure why he was dwelling on such things as they crossed back into the barrier of Jujutsu High. A flight of fancy maybe. Parental longing. It wasn't like him to dwell on the past. He preferred to think of the future and all the delightful chaos he could cause. It distracted him from his more human emotions. Still the question persisted. Why was he thinking of starting a family now? Why had that itch come back after hundreds of years? Kurama might have been able to answer if he weren't taking a nap, the sleepy bastard. But enough serious thoughts. Toji was going to make his move any minute now. He could sense Megumi's father, lingering just on the edge of his perception, waiting like a watchful wraith. Pity that he hadn't listened to him after all. A pity. Worse, he had either forgotten or chosen to outright the dire warning he'd given him, the promise he'd made. It wasn't a matter of sensing his cursed energy, he had none but his life force. That, everyone had. Still he couldn't help but wonder why Megumi's old man had broken their agreement. Greed really was a terrible thing. That said, despite his anger, her was half tempted to let Toji try his ill-fated mission, if only to help Gojo and Gito improve. But then they might die fighting him and that wouldn't be fun at all. Decisions. What to do, how to do it, and when to allow it. In the end he decided to let fate run its course and events play out mostly as fate had intended. Gojo was strong, but his best buddy knew he would lose a fight between him and Toji, not die, because he was already taking several steps to ensure otherwise, yet he would simply underestimate his opponent. Likewise, he would inevitably become stronger because of this loss. There was nothing quite like having your teeth kicked in, your arrogance bulldozed, and your worldview shattered to make you stronger. After all, it did wonders for him. Sure, it might have made him a little crazy, but all the best ones were. So when Toji sprang his ambush and stabbed Gojo in the back, he pretended to be surprised. He feigned shock, then helped Gito usher Amani and Kuroi to safety, deep into the bowels of the academy. Everything worked out about as he intended. Make no mistake, he didn't like leaving Gojo to take the fall, but his bestie better than the Ristai would never improve otherwise. Failure was a terrible teacher, but she was an effective one. Sure enough, he sensed the moment Gojo lost and died to Toji. Strange, it took a little longer than he expected. His gaze strayed to Geto, considering him. This might be a suitable lesson for him as well, if he played his cards right. Naturally, he couldn't let his dear little niece die. That wouldn't be very Uncle Y of him now, would it? He could sense Toji following at a leisurely pace now. The man was cautious, he'd give him that. Had he brought backup? No, he wouldn't want to split the payout. The wayward Zenin might be terrible at saving money, but he didn't like to share. Most of it would go to his dear wife and Megumi, but the rest. We're in Tenjin's territory now, Geto declared, simultaneously snapping him back to reality and drawing his attention to the vast corded tree looming above them. This is the foundation of the nation's key barriers, the main hall of the Tomb of the Star. Only those invited are able to enter it. Tenjin will protect you until the assimilation. ... or we can turn back around and go home with me and Kuroi. Naruto looked to Amania with a winning smile. It's your choice. His adorable niece paused, taken back by the sudden offer. Kuroi stiffened behind her, eyes on him. Geto took up the torch with aplomb. Satoru and I already talked it over before we met you. We're the strongest, and we've got this guy with us. An elbow sank into Naruto's ribs, drawing a small smile from him. Good. He had taken their little heart-to-heart on the beach after all, it seemed. No matter what decision you make, we'll guarantee your future. And I'll have a word with Tenjin. Naruto began cracking his knuckles for good measure. I'm really not a fan of this whole assimilating thing. Ham and I looked to him with wide, teary eyes. I don't have to die. You never did. He patted her head. You just had to realize it. And she did. He wasn't surprised when Riko broke down in tears. This was something she needed to understand for herself. They couldn't just tell her, they had to teach her. Well, Geto prodded her ever so gently. What do you want, Ham and I? The floodgates burst and the poor girl began to bawl. I want to be with everyone longer. She scrubbed at her face with both hands, fruitlessly wiping the tears away, only for more to pour forth. I want to go to all kinds of places with everyone. I want Uncle Naruto to treat me to lunch. Greedy girl. Her so-called lunches always took a big bite out of his wallet. But if it meant making her happy, he pulled her into a hug. Let's go home, Riko. His sixth sense shrieked a warning. Ham and I didn't see his small smile. Probably for the best, that. Showtime. Riko. He hissed in her ear. Duck. His niece let go of him and obeyed without hesitation. A bullet whistled harmlessly over her head ... and landed in Naruto's open palm. It actually hurt. Catching it blew a hole right through his hand and took several fingers besides. That was surprising. Seemed someone had upgraded their arsenal since they'd last spoken. It should have worried him. In another life it most certainly would have. No, his smile became a devilish grin, revealing pearly white teeth. So this is what pain feels like. I'd almost forgotten. He cracked his neck and chuckled before flicking the round into his belt for later inspection. From there, he willed the hole in his hand to close and turned to face the shadowy space where he knew the gunman to be. Come on out, Toji ... No point in hidden now. Hill. A familiar voice sighed from the gloom. And here I was hoping you'd be a little less quick on the draw. His old adversary emerged from an adjacent tunnel, pistol in hand, cursed object slung round his shoulder. A bead of sweat ran down the old Zenin's brow as he saw his smile. Too bad. So sad. He'd chosen this path. He could have walked away. Instead he sought to shoot his shot and paid for it. A quick death wouldn't cut it. Not here. Not now. Not after what he'd just done. His punishment must be more severe. Geto's face went ashen. Why are you here? Toji tilted his head. I get what you're saying. Because I killed Satoru Gojo, of course. Naruto took great delight in poking a magnificent hole in that particular statement. Actually, you didn't. Geto balked, heaved a sigh he hadn't realized he was holding, and visibly roxed. He didn't. Nope. Give him a few hours and he's gonna be right as rain. Maybe a little high, boo what? Toji blinked slowly, baffled by his words. Wasn't the answer obvious? But I killed him. No, he shook his head. You didn't. You should have aimed for the head. He scowled at him, irked by those words. But I did. Not with the right tool, buddy. Comprehension dawned. Run along now. Naruto let him stew in that revelation under Geto's watchful eye, took Kuroi's hand in his and brought it to his mouth. From there he delivered a brief peck just shy of her knuckles. Take Em and I back up the elevator. I'll play with Toji for a bit and join you later tonight. Her eyes widened just so at his declaration, utterly unaccustomed to such civil behavior from him. At length, she granted him a small smile. So you can be a gentleman when you want to be. He winked her way and nudged her hip with his. She smacked his flank for it. Riko absolutely gagged. Yuawa, not in front of me, you two. Sierras, if you would. Police girl wasted no time in ushering the exasperated girl away after that. Toji didn't even try to intercept them. Good on him. It wasn't going to save him from his wrath, but he seemed to realize any aggressive action on his part now would only worsen the situation. Well, this is more than I bargained for. He flicked a look between him and Geto, then shrugged. I don't suppose you're willing to let bygones be bygones. Naruto shrugged off his coat. You tried to shoot my niece while I was holding her. I'm going to feed you your own. Bazizute. His phone vibrated violently in his pocket. Hold that thought. He held up a finger, retrieved it, and flicked it open. I need to take this. He glanced to his ally. Mind handling him for a second, Geto? A giant white cursed dragon burst into the air and barreled into Toji at speed, sending him hurtling away. Sirius vaulted after them. He'd take that as a yes. Hello, hello. He pressed the receiver to his ear. Naruto speaking. Naruto. His right ear twitched. He knew that voice. Yoshino, how you been? It's been a while. It had been a good long while since he'd last heard from Yoshino Nagi. She sounded older, tired, not at all like the energetically exuberant woman who'd wrestled him into bed. He wondered why. I need your help. Anything for an old friend. He looked back to Geto's battle, wincing a little as Toji cut that white dragon in two. Need help with something. Someone, actually. Her voice hitched a little, peaking with ... was that fear. I tried to do it on my own, but I just can't. Whiskered cheeks dimpled in confusion. I don't follow. His phone pinged, informing him that he'd received a photo. He held the phone away from his face and looked down at it. A small baby stared back at him with dark hair, darker eyes ... and whiskered cheeks. His name is Junpei. Yoshino's voice continued haltingly. She sounded like she was on the verge of tears. He's yours. I haven't been with anyone else since ... you know. He believed her. Yoshino had been wild, but she'd been loyal. So Eddie while they were together, until they had a tiff a fight and went their separate ways. Come to think of it, that was about a year ago. ... was that why? A little flare of parental pride flared up in his chest. Son. A son. He had a son. He must tell everyone, absolutely everyone. No, calm down. Just a second. A few quick presses of phone keys remedied that. Done. Wired some funds your way. He heard her choke. This is ... How did you get this much money? A giggle. Various ways. Did you steal it? No. I would never. He heard her exhale with relief. All right. I just visited a few banks and made a couple withdrawals. Naruto. Heta. She really was too easy to rile up. A distant crash from below reclaimed his attention. Whoops. Geto seemed to be at the end of his rope. Time to jump in. Text me your address and I'll swing by tonight. He chirruped happily, blackened heart singing in his chest. Keep the lights on. Just like that. Just like that. He'd always enjoyed her company. Naruto blew her a quick kiss through the phone. Evlavia talk to letter B. He ended the call and crashed down between Toji and Geto before the former could slash the latter. A blade bit into his shoulder almost immediately, spattering rich red blood every which way. Rather than cry out in pain as any sane person would, he doubled over with a laugh. Geto balked at him, the poor boy. Are you insane? Possibly. Sorry about that. I'm just in a good mood. I'm a daddy. See, look. He thrust his phone at them, revealing the image within, a young woman holding a boy in her arms. His name's Junpei. I have to tell everyone. But first. Toji swore. Naruto's fist barreled into his face. In the same instant, Toji stabbed him in the chest. Both men grinned and the world dissolved into a red slurry of violence. Geto watched two monsters duke it out. Monsters. Yes, that was the word. They were just so damn fast. Monsters. Geto knew monsters. He'd fought them every day. Monsters were curses and likewise curse users, who delighted in causing suffering. Some of them even wore human skin. As a Jujutsu sorcerer, he'd sworn never to become such, to never fall to such depravity so long as he'd lived. To uphold peace and order in the world. He knew what it felt like, you see, to suffer those dark intrusive thoughts in his most private moments, to sometimes wonder if it would better for all non-sorcerers, for monsters like Toji Fushiguro and Naruto Uzumaki, to just die. Oh, yes, he knew what monsters were. ... or so he'd thought, once upon a time. Now his body lay bloodied and broken, his worldview shattered once more. Two monsters stood over him, one on the verge of killing him, the other having intervened to save his life. He wasn't sure who he hated more. Toji had made a fool of him, no, that was putting it lightly. He'd manhandled him, and every cursed spirit he'd brought to bear. He'd thought himself strong, powerful, not nearly so much as Gojo, but even so, he'd been close. Reality was cruel, fate had thoroughly disabused him of that notion. Toji looked down on him as one might an ant. You couldn't let me finish off the kid at least. Naruto stepped in, casually batting aside his blade again as they clashed. Curse manipulation, remember. Who knows what'll happen. Fair, the sorcerer killer stepped back with a shrug. That's a scary look you've got there. Don't suppose you'd let me go if I up and apologized. Crunch. An uppercut sent him hurtling into one of the temple buildings. That should buy me a minute. Naruto glanced down at him. You good? Geto gurgled wetly. Right, bleeding out. Let me fix that. The inverted spear of heaven burst out his chest without warning, showering them both in blood. Naruto looked back and made an annoyed noise. I like that jacket. You're paying for it. He thrust a hand backward into Toji's chest. In that instant Geto glimpsed something in his palm, a spark of blue light that rapidly swelled until, Rasengan, Toji vanished in a whirl of blue light that blasted him away. Just like that, a casual technique, and the man who had been picking him apart for the last 5 minutes just went flying. He'd never felt so weak as he did now. It was all a lie, wasn't it? He and Gojo had thought themselves strong, but they weren't, not at all. Just thinking of it made him choke up. What are you? This again? Naruto tutted as though the question amused him. I already told you. I'm your friend. No, you're not. He rasped out a cough and tried to bat his hand away. You let me lose back there. You let Gojo. Yes, I am, and yes, I did. Said hand patted his head almost patronizingly as an older brother might a younger sibling. As I said, I'm interested in your growth. And just as you can't grow without loss, I can't see what you'll become if you die on me now, can I? Golden light shone forth from his hand, mending the worst of his wounds. Neither you, nor Gojo, or even Toji know the true essence of Jujutsu. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. This is a good opportunity, so I'll use it to teach you a few things. Something like this usually wouldn't work on someone like Toji, boo what? Brushing the blood off his knees, he turned and stood, raising both hands. His fingers flicked through a strange series of seals, one after another, each faster than the last. Guido couldn't hope to keep track of them all. He lost count after the blonde breached 30. Abruptly he stopped, forming a strange sort of cross with both hands and his thumbs raised just before his chest. Take a good long look now. A crimson eye peeked over his shoulder, and don't tell anyone about this. Carve this memory into your bones and remember it when you discover your own. My own what? Naruto didn't respond to that effect. There was no need for it. The air thickened around them, heavy with promise. And then he heard the words, domain expansion. 2 words that no sorcerer never wanted to hear from their enemy. 2 words that signified the very pinnacle of Jujutsu. 2 words that he'd never hoped to achieve in his lifetime or the next. 2 words that put the fear of gods in him right and proper. 2 words to forever change the path of his life. And what came next most certainly would. Bloody festival of 1,000 lives. Guido's world went red, then black. And Naruto began to laugh. Something's wrong. Toji knew it. Something ... is wrong. Of course he did. Something is terribly, horribly wrong. It all started when Uzumaki did something with his hands, when the world went black, and his surroundings were swallowed up by the blonde's domain. It wasn't just him. Everything was consumed in everlasting darkness. All of Tenjin's realm was subsumed. Ordinarily he would have cared about such. Domains didn't affect him, given that he had 0 cursed energy and he'd broken out of his fair share before. Then came the laughter. It rose around him, high and wild, a delighted cackle of not just one voice, 3, 6, no, 9 different voices rising in horrifying unison. Each grew louder with every passing moment, a cacophony of sound that threatened to render him dumb and deaf. He tried to escape, but couldn't. That shouldn't have been possible, and it only got worse from there. He whirled in search of them and found nothing. Still the voices grew louder. Toji, 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 poor Toji. There you are, Toji. It's such a shame, Toji. Why didn't you listen, Toji? When will you learn your lesson, Toji? Tell me, are we having fun yet, Toji? He should have been able to escape easily. He had no cursed energy to latch onto, nothing for this damnable domain to latch onto and attack. And yet he couldn't find it in him move. He found himself rooted in place, unable to do anything more than pivot in place, eyes flitting this way and that in the dark, all for naught. Show yourself. And then there was light. He dearly wished that there wasn't. Without warning, the darkness cleared and he saw the world in which he found himself. A white expanse of space, so mind-numbingly bright that the mere act of blinking made his eyes burn. 9 different Narutos waved back at him from their perches. Each sat atop the head of ... What in the hells were those? A tanuki, a 2-tailed cat, a 3-tailed turtle, on it went, a mad menagerie of beasts raging down to some ghastly octopus high-bird and a 9-tailed ... fox. Aw, shit. His eyes were red like roses, his teeth sharp, and that grin promised pain on a primal level. Do you like them? The bloodied blonde hopped down from the beast's head, grinning from ear to ear. They're old friends of mine, though most of them are little more than vestiges these days, really. An arm swept out to the doppelgangers. These 9 blood clones of mine each serve to symbolize that. You'd think they'd be no different from shadow cones, but insofar as you're concerned. A torrent of unseen fists cracked across his body, sending him sprawling. ... They're much worse. Righting himself with an effort, Toji tumbled to his feet. What the hell is this? You know what this is. Naruto walked away from him. Don't worry, you can move again. This wouldn't be any fun if you didn't fight back. A kick cracked his ribs. He still didn't see it. How? Ordinarily, a domain expansion would have no effect on you. Seeing as you have no cursed energy, there's no sure hit effect here. The blonde wastrel shrugged his shoulder. However, unfortunately for you, my domain's a little different. He made a pinching motion with 2 clawed fingers, as though squeezing a bin between them. You see, you're not dealing with your average domain anymore. An angry breath hissed out of him. No, yes. The whiskered warrior beamed, much to his chagrin. Naruto beamed. You're in my domain, that much is true, but you're also in what remains of the seal in my stomach. That thing doesn't care about cursed energy or a lack thereof. Which means, a hand seized Toji's throat. He grabbed it on instinct, only for a fist to find his ribs and blast him away. There's no escape for you, not here. Not unless I say so. Naruto hadn't moved forward. Not a single solitary step. ... So it's time for you to face the facts and realize. But his clones had. They were smiling now. ... You're out of your depth. 4 of his 8 doppelgangers bounded down after him, tittering happily, drawling their syllables as if they were drunk. Did you know, here in this domain, ... we don't need a sure hit to end you. ... We're not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with us. Toji whipped his inverted spear of heaven into the skull of the nearest clone. It crumpled in a shower of blood, for another to take its place and stab a dagger into his thigh. Grunting in surprise, he backhanded the blonde, only to take a dagger to his back. Killing that one conjured two more, for each clone killed more and more came, an ceaseless rush of bodies that never seemed to end, an onslaught from which there was no escape. No matter how many weapons he used, no matter the tricks, they just kept coming. Worse, those damn copies of his just wouldn't shut up. Each word brought with it another blow. We're stronger, bammed, faster, thruck, smarter, banged, better. A hammer fist rocked his head to the side, leaving him reeling. We told you to stay away, Fushiguro. Teeth whistled through the air that were his. But you just wouldn't listen, would you? Blood splashed across the floor. Why didn't you listen? A kick cracked up into Toji's chin and he found himself airborne. He whirled, only for a hand to catch his ankle before he could breach the domain and slam him back down. He whirled around like a snake and broke his attacker's neck, only for another fist to fend his face. Liver, spleen, throat. He found himself getting jumped in every sense of the word, beaten and battered from every angle. It didn't matter how many of them he killed. For every 3 he ended, 6 more spawned, each stronger than the last. It was endless. He'd become the instrument of his own defeat. When would it end? All right, everyone. The original clapped his hand suddenly, sparing Toji from the endless purgatory into which he'd fallen. That's enough. Let's try something else. A rising uppercut smashed into Fushiguro's chin, then the domain shattered, and quite suddenly, he found himself in daylight. Did he kick me clean out the domain and through the ceiling? How? We're miles underground. He looked up, eyes wide, bruised lungs heaving for air that never seemed to come. There was a glowing figure above him, silhouetted against the setting sun. He stared up at them aghast, eyes wide. So this was it, then. Time slowed to a crawl around him, all the colors of his world fading to so much gray as gravity claimed him. He knew what was about to happen, but he couldn't move quick enough to counter it. Even as he raised an arm and yanked a length of chain from the cursed spirit on his shoulders, he knew he wouldn't make it in time. I knew. Hooking that length of chain to his inverted spear of heaven, Toji twisted his body in the air and flung it up at the disaster looming over him. I knew he was strong. That's why I never took any of the bounties on him. Rather than dodge like any sane individual, Naruto caught it between his teeth, then twisted his head, grasped the chan and reeled him in like a fish. His right arm swung back, fingers crackling with scarlet sparks. Toji's world accelerated too hard, too fast, and he felt something tear in his torso as his world went white. I already knew there was a gap between the two of us. Vicious red eyes filled the entirety of his vision. But to think it was this much. Damn it. That fist slammed down into his face. Ground, pain, agony. Reality reasserted itself with a vengeance. He struck the earth like a falling star. Dirt and mud ruptured beneath his body, forming a crater that could be seen for miles around. Where had he landed? He couldn't tell. People were screaming. Why? Where were they? Oh, gods, what had done? The pressure bearing down on his face eased momentarily, to which he lashed out, driving a fist backward. A grunt was his reward and he found himself free. Reeling from the impact, Toji stumbled upright and fumbled for another tool. His fingers failed him. My right arm's been dislocated. Best fix that before. Here, let me help. A hand settled on his shoulder and wrenched the joint back in before he could, drawing a pain growl from him. Sun's going down, Toji. Those clawed fingers bit into his collarbone. When it sets, your time is up. Smiling, he shoved him forward, allowing him 3 stumbling steps. Belatedly he realized where they were and why he heard so many voices. There were people here after all, men and women standing in the street, peering down at them over the lip of the crater. It took him a moment to recognize a few of the towering buildings looming above, but once he did, his blood ran cold. No, it froze in his veins. No. Shibuya. Why in the 9 hells were they in Shibuya? People were staring at them, pointing, some even had their cell phones out. He wanted to say something, had to say something, but the words clogged in his throat. He tried to turn and run, but the ground sucked at his feet like a swamp, preventing him from leaping away. Do you see all these people? Naruto raised a hand. Remember their faces, because they going to remember yours. This is the day the world sees you die. Not yet. Not like this. He didn't want to go. His life flashed before his eyes. Megumi. He whirled and lashed out at Naruto with the inverted spear of heaven. The blonde caught his wrist and squeezed until the nerves ground together and his hand spasmed, forcing him to drop his treasured tool, but in doing so, he failed to predict the blade hidden in his free hand behind his back. Toji swept down with all his strength, all his skill, all his raw speed and Naruto clicked his tongue. Nope. Steel shattered on the blonde's chest. Still smiling, he snatched one of those serrated shards out the air and ran him through. Toji doubled over with a wheeze, clutching at his gut, painfully aware of his own mortality. For a moment he almost gave up. He was injured, bleeding and so damnably tired. It would be easy. So easy to just close his eyes and never open them again. Are you satisfied with this? Is this really how you wanted it to end? He saw his son's face again in his mind's eye. Something snapped in him. Naruto. He lunged forward, grabbing the blonde by the throat with both hands, slamming him against the edge of the crater. Stone cracked against his back, but that damn monster didn't bat an eyelash at the sudden reversal. He simply smiled. Salmoniteth tumaniteth weorethoresamaniteth reared back, and stabbed him in the chest. Then the shoulder, followed by his leg. His limb buckled briefly, forcing him to a knee. You should be proud of yourself, Fushiguro. His old rival smiled down at him, grinning like some blood-soaked deity, heedless of the damage he'd just done. You stand at the peak of humanity. No cursed energy brought you to this point, no techniques or tricks, just raw physical power and your own cunning. You're strong. As a human, I'd be proud of you. Unfortunately, he placed 2 fingers together. I stopped being human a long time ago. It was just a flick to his forehead, a simple act of contempt. That flick blasted Toji up out the crater and clear across the city. His body slammed through a busy street full of screaming people, slashed through a tractor trailer, crashed into a skyscraper. Naruto crashed into a mid-tumble with an overhand smash, drilling him down into a parking garage as a splinter might beneath a deity's skin. Just like that, the light of day was denied to him again. He squinted against the flickering red emergency lighting, peering into the gloom as it shifted in and out of focus. An almighty rumble overhead told him where Naruto was. He had moments at best. He tried to right himself and failed, tried to breathe, only to cough blood. A bitter laugh leaked past his lips. You damn monster. As though summoned by that very title, Naruto reappeared. One moment he was somewhere far above him, nowhere to be seen. In the next, the emergency lights flickered once more and he was suddenly there, staring down at him. It terrified him more than he cared to admit. How in the hell had Satoru Gojo befriended this thing? A boot came crashing down on his chest, pinning him to the ground. I warned you once before, didn't I? Toji looked up to find Naruto staring down at him. His adversary wasn't smiling anymore. Somehow, that made it worse. Stay away from Aminai. You didn't listen. Now you owe me a debt and I intend to collect. What are you? Something broke in him. What the hell are you? I already told you. His boot drove down, cracking his chest. I'm not a cursed spirit. This would be a lot worse for you if I was. But as I said earlier, I'm not a human, either. Is he high? Deranged? Drunk on blood? To hell with that. This didn't make any sense. Then what are you? His voice peaked in a rare moment of despair. Tell me, I am me. The eldritch being before him shrugged. Naruto and Kurama, yet neither of them. Someone who's lived too long and finally remembered what it's like to be alive. And you, are dead. Toji finished the sentence in his mind. You think I don't know that, idiot? He knew he was finished, it was the truth. No one to blame for it but himself. I refused to do any work for free. He laid back with a sigh, starting at the flickering lights overhead. Water dripped down from a cracked pipe above, struck his face just below his eye and ran down his cheek in the mockery of a tear. Normally I would have said that and hightailed it out of there when things took a turn for the worse. Yet he was right before my eyes, smiling. Mocking me, challenging me. A fist swung back. He saw his death in the blonde's blazing eyes. That thing is probably the strongest creature of the modern age at the moment. A rusty smile stretched his face as he glared up at him, refusing to beg. Even here at the end he refused to give him the satisfaction that he sought. I wanted to reject him. I wanted to bring him to his knees. I wanted to take down the pinnacle of this rotten world and the Zenin clan that rejected me. Laughter bubbled up in him. I twisted myself trying to affirm myself. That was the moment I lost. He closed his eyes as death rushed in. Toji, you fool. I thought you had abandoned that pride. I thought you had chosen to live a simple life with your family. Naruto stopped short. Well, what do you have to say for yourself? Surprisingly, he actually did a few last words for him. In a few years, my kid will be sold off to the Zenin clan. His eyes creaked open. My wife doesn't know. You'll have to explain it to her. He deserves a better life than the shitty one she and I gave him. Do with that what you will. Megumi, right. The crimson bastard nodded once. Shoot, kid. Well, you don't seem to understand. His fist fell. When did you get the impression that I was going to kill you? The very world seemed to release a gigantic breath at that moment. Toji's mind fizzled out spectacularly. No. A finger wagged his way. You don't get to puss out and die on me when things get rough. Dying's too easy. Living is hard. Living is hell. His hand shot down, grabbing him by his bloody shirt to drag him forward. You made your choice, now you live with the consequences of your actions. You said you were going to kill me. And I have. From this day onward, the Sosra killer, Toji Zenin, is well and truly dead. He'll never take another contract or bounty again. Naruto smiled then, a smile that still held entirely too many teeth for his liking. All that remains is Toji Fushiguro. With that in mind, I have one last question for you. Which do you prefer, arm or leg? Realization broke like the dawn, cruel and painful. Toji understood in an instant. This was the price he had to pay. Arm. He held out his left limb raised at his side. Make it quick. Naruto smiled. Wise choice. Something burst out of his hand. It looked like a fox and then there was pain. Blood spattered Toji's face as he crumpled down to a knee. He heard the awful ripping and rending of flesh, followed by a curious lightness on that side. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself to look all the same, to gaze at the mangled stump ending just above his elbow. With his remaining hand he reached over and grasped it, making certain it was real. The blood on his fingers confirmed it. This is the price for my sins, for all the lives I've taken. Be thankful I didn't take the whole thing off of the shoulder. Now, then, Naruto knelt to retrieve the inverted spear of heaven where it had fallen. I'll be taking this, and you will be taking a nap. Toji experienced a single instant of beautiful epiphany. Something barreled into his face. Sleep was a mercy. It wasn't hard for Naruto to make his way back to the surface. Easier still, to find the rat's nest. All too easy. Oh, the Time Vessel Association or Star Religious Group if you were feeling fancy dressed their headquarters up all nice and pretty, calling it the House of the Children of the Star and all, but he knew a rat's nest when he saw one. It looked like a gaudy mockery of a church on the outside, fit with an open stage for its so-called congregation. Petty names and petty riches and petty titles for a petty band of small-minded people. They worshipped Tenjin, sure, but that didn't make them good people. Quite the opposite. Faith was a wonderful thing and often acted as excellent motivation in a pinch, but all too often people committed heinous crimes in the name of said faith. If this faith demanded the death of an innocent girl, his niece, who had never harmed a single solitary soul, then that it was evil. Time to tear it all down. He marched up the steps at speed, grabbed the massive doors and ripped them open. Oi, where's your leader? Men and women clad in white robes awaited him within. There was no attack, no ambush, nothing at all. Quite the contrary, several dozen men and women welcomed him with applause and happy smiles, as though he were some long-lost hero who'd just slain the demon lord. Was it because he was Rico's self-proclaimed uncle? Was there another reason? Or were their heads just full of vapid nonsense? He'd come here to demand their leader's head, to make a spectacle of it and scare the living daylights out of them. But to see them like this, fawning over him in his blood-soaked clothes, acting like they were innocent, it made him sick. His right hand twitched. He gripped it to stifle an impulse. The corner of his mouth quirked into a scowl. Didn't know I could still get this angry anymore. They kept clapping, and clapping, and clapping, just applauding him and his deeds like he was some kind of god. Their applause sickened him. Sheep. No, sheep were better than this. Sheep wouldn't countenance the death of an innocent girl. He couldn't even call them pigs or mongrels, because even animals knew better than to anger a predator in their midst. They were worse than that. Their white robes only irked him all the more, as did their empty, vapid smiles. They were ... what was the word? Monkeys. Yes, that was it. And in that instant, he knew. Oh, yes, he knew exactly what to do. He walked toward the nearest worshipper with slow, shuffling steps. They didn't sense the danger, didn't even flinch when his shadow fell over them. They kept clapping. Naruto's temper, already hanging by a thread, finally snapped. His arms swung back. 5 firm fingers clenched into a claw ... and swung with lazy grace. Blood painted the wall behind him as his right hand sliced down again in a horizontal chop. A man's head flew from his shoulders to strike the wall opposite him. Their body collapsed at his feet, a puppet severed from his strings. Just like that, the clapping stopped. Do I have your attention now? Picking up the headless corpse, he gave it a good hard shake. Do you realize what you've done? He snapped his fingers and the doors slammed shut behind him, sealed with chakra. An uneasy ripple ran through the room. You idiots wanted to kill my niece for your precious Tenjin. He smacked his lips, producing an audible pop. I don't know if you did because you're genuinely stupid enough to think she would want something like that, or if your leaders just wanted to draw me out of hiding. Well, congratulations. He whirled and flung the corpse at another white-robed man, splattering them both against the wall like so much rotten fruit. Here I am. Are you happy now? Just like that, the screaming began. How irritating. Monkeys were always the most annoying when they shrieked. Naturally, he decided to shut the lot of them up and started swinging. Off went a woman's shrieking head, tumbling through the air. And then another's head, and then their heads. He waded in, arms swinging, crushing and slashing and pulping everything within reach. They tried to flee. They failed. With the doors sealed, they only bunched themselves up and made for easier targets. He took his time with them. Though he could have killed them all in an instant, he used his hands and feet and teeth instead. Maybe that made him a monster. Maybe he should have tried talking. Maybe he should have done a lot of things. He didn't care. Not smiling now, are you? His voice rose above the worshippers' shrill screams. Not laughing now, are you? Stop. Someone shouted at him from the balcony above. Stop, I say. Just what do you think you're doing, Jujutsu sorcerer? What am I doing? He turned to face them, eyes blank, a beatific smile wreathing his bloody face. What does it look like? Killing monsters. Whomever they were, they must have heard the commotion from up above and come to investigate. No, wait just a minute. He took in his dark hair, tan features, and marked forehead at a glance, their face pinched in an exquisite expression of terror. Oh, there he was, the big cheese himself. The one he'd been looking for. Now what was his name again? He remembered now. His grin grew. Shidru Sonoda. A giant maw of teeth shot forth from his arm, snatched the flabbergasted founder up, and brought him close. He squealed like a pig as his flesh began to boil, begging for mercy. You can't do this. We're human. ... And Naruto blinked once, uncaring. I'm no Jujutsu sorcerer. I kill when I want, where I want. Just like you wanted to kill my niece. He tightened his grip, reveling in the cry of pain the maddened man made. Tell me, did Rico and I do anything wrong? No, don't answer that question. You'll just spout some drivel I don't want to hear. And niece, you really didn't know, did you? Poor bastard. Forgive me, that was a mistake. We were told to buy. No excuses. The jaws clenched, biting Shidru in half, cutting their tirade short. Now, then, dropping his eviscerated corpse, he turned to face the survivors, the latter of whom were all huddling in the corner. There's a lot of you and I'm a foul mood, so. He crossed his fingers and summoned a swarm of shadow clones. I'm going to make an example of you. He walked out an hour later, covered in blood. Someone was waiting for him in the courtyard, standing amongst the last rays of the setting sun, head hung low. Yo, a familiar head of white hair rose, revealing bright blue eyes and bruised lips quirking in a roguish grin. It's been a bit. You look like shit. Naruto almost smiled despite himself. Almost. ... It's not my blood, Gojo. Oh, Satoru hummed. That's fine, then. His best buddy looked awful. His white hair stained with blood, crimson spattered against his shirt, his attire in utter disarray. There was a wild, almost crazed look in his eyes that bespoke of a man who'd been pushed to the edge ... then walked right off it of his own volition. He'd known he would survive, of course, but for him to look like this ... well. A blonde brow rose. For real, Gojo. For real, real. He pushed back his hair to reveal a subtle dent in his skull. I'm alive and kicking. Reverse curse technique, hey. So you finally mastered it. Bingo. He thumbed his skull twice, not even wincing as his finger prodded the tender flesh. When I got stabbed through the throat by that guy, I gave up on counterattacking and poured all my focus into that technique. Did you know? Cursed energy is negative energy. While it can enhance the body, it isn't able to regenerate it. So you multiply that negative energy against itself to create positive energy. That's the reverse curse technique. There was something different about him, something that hadn't been there before. He hadn't expected this. He's rambling on and on. Is he high? Easier said than done. Gojo threw his head back and laughed at the sky, heedless of his concern. I hadn't been able to pull that off up until now myself, and I couldn't understand anything the one person who could do it said. But I finally grasped it on the verge of death. The true essence of cursed energy. Was it fate? Was it luck? Both? Neither. I don't know. The only reasons I didn't die back there was because that bastard didn't chop my head off, and my skull wasn't stabbed with that cursed tool of his. It's so funny I can't help but laugh. And yet ... ever since I lost to that guy, I've been wondering about something. His comrade seemed to sway in place for a long moment before righting himself. ... over and over ... and over. And over again. He lurched forward, shuffling toward him. ... Am I weak? Oh, no. Of all the things he had planned for, this wasn't one of them. But can't be it, right? Gojo's smile seemed strained now, his confidence fracturing and restoring itself before his very eyes. I'm supposed to be the strongest. But I lost. He thumbed his chin and shook his head. You had to swing in and save the day, yet you're standing there, where Toji should be. That's his weapon hanging from your belt. He flicked a hand to the inverted spear of heaven dangling at his side. No way he would have given you that willingly. So you must have beat him, which makes you stronger than him. And if you are, I gotta ask. Here at last he paused, standing before him. Which of us is really stronger? Oh, so they were doing this. ... Did I upset you? Nope. Gojo grinned, and it was like he'd never been sad at all. I just feel really good right now. Probably won't feel like this again for a while, and I gotta get this off my chest. So let's go. A finger dug into his ribs. You and me, before I start doubting myself again. His brow furrowed, mildly concerned for his mental state. Aren't you worried about Amini? Gojo tilted his head. Should I be? If you're here, then she's safe, which means that backstabbing bastard ain't a problem anymore. Guido's probably fine too. Belatedly, he noticed the blood on his coat. Is that yours? When Naruto shook his head, comprehension dawned in those bold blue eyes. Oh, I get it. His old friend looked past him to regard the trail of blood he'd left behind him, and the puddle of blood even now leaking out through the closed doors of the temple. He butchered those star bastards who put that bounty on her. He granted him a nod and that grin grew. I owe you for that. Even more reason for us to fight, then. Come on, it'll be fun ... even though you're going to lose. That pricked his pride, right and proper. I'm going to lose. To you. He growled, plucked Toji's inverted spear from his belt ... then cast it aside. I don't need this puny thing to kick your ass. Oh? Gojo looked to the sky, momentarily spacing out, then recovering. Is that it? A wide grin split his face from ear to ear. Yeah, maybe so. It was tempting. So very tempting. His blood was up and he wasn't satisfied after maiming Toji, no, not at all, not in the least. He tried to restrain himself nonetheless. Gojo, look, neither of us are in the best frame of mind for this, don't you think? Satoru slugged him in the face, breaking his nose and driving his face toward the sky. Wasn't asking. Naruto's head snapped forward with a feral snarl. Never mind, we're back in business. He swept a hand forward, only for his palm to pass through empty air. Movement behind him. Cripes. Satoru pressed 2 fingers into his back. Curse technique reversal, red. Pain. He'd almost forgotten what it felt like. The blast shredded through his defenses, burned his coat to cinders, and sent him plowing forward across the temple. He caught a pillar as he tumbled and righted himself, bare cess steaming as he regenerated. So much for his jacket. He'd liked his clothes. Toji had already torn holes in them, and now this. Jujutsu was never going to let him live this one down, was she? Never mind that damn Mei. Look out below. Gojo already was winding up for another red, eager to use it like a child with their new toy, and blasted him again. I should be saying that to you. He lobbed a racing shuriken at him in retaliation. Their attacks met in the middle. Sparks flew. Steam spat between them as they collided and nullified one another. Gradually, the haze cleared between them. They stood apart as the moment stretched out into eternity until it finally began to fray at the seams, bend, break now, until Gojo lunged first, grinning from ear to ear. Don't you dare hold back. Naruto mirrored him a second later. Shut up and fight. The strongest collided. The world shook. An unseen shockwave lanced out, obliterating the clouds. Another rattled the ground, while a third set the surrounding buildings aflame. The earth trembled. Heaven quivered. An unstoppable force crashed down into an immovable object, and incredibly, neither yielded, neither faltered, neither gave an inch. Reality warped. Time twisted. The very air around them inverted from the sheer force of their collision, and still they did not give in. Twin fists reared back as their owners roared and collided with one another. Once, twice, thrice now, in a blistering barrage of blows felt the world over. To call it a fight would have been an insult. This was a brawl, a brutal beating as the combatants wailed one another without abandon. The only blessing was that their fight was contained at the Temple of the Star. For now. Naruto knew he should care about civilian casualties. Really, he should. But he was just having too much fun. What was this wonderful feeling in his chest? He couldn't describe it. Even Gojo brought both hands together in a slashing motion and nearly tore his head off. He would have too, if he hadn't blasted him away with a wall of wind. He met him in the air and brought both hands down on his head, though his fists meet infinity. The sheer momentum behind sent his adversary hurtling to the ground in a plume of smoke, only to clear an instant later as Satoru blasted a massive sphere of red up at him. He blocked it and lost an arm for it, then grabbed said arm and whipped it at Gojo, braiding him across the head. It wasn't a jest. He really was trying to kill him. So was he. They were, the both of them, fighting with everything they had. It should have been sad. They were friends, weren't they? Friends didn't try to kill each other. Gita would have had something to say if he were here watching his. Shoko, normally so quiet and reserved, would have hollered at them to stop, to say nothing of Nanami, Mei, and Yutaheim, surely. And yet he couldn't stop smiling. Was this what it felt like to be fulfilled? He hadn't felt anything like this since Sukuna. They were the both of them bloodied and exhausted, far from their best. Satoru had only just dragged himself back from the brink of death, while he well, he might have expended a little too much energy teaching Toji a lesson. But he'd never felt so alive. Gojo was only freshly awakened and already all the stronger for it. It hadn't even been an hour since he'd awakened his eyes and unlocked his potential. Only an hour, and already he was fighting this well. One day he would be even stronger than this. When that day came, he might actually taste true death once and for all. What a day that would be. But for now, although Satoru Gojo was strong, he was not the strongest. Not here. Not quite. Not yet. His fist slammed into the younger man's infinity. Gojo's technique held. And then, the main amplification. He'd never forget the look on Satoru's face, that split second before impact when his eyes widened, just before his fist came crashing in. Credit where it was due, he managed to twist his head aside and avoid the worst of it, but he reeled back all the same, cheek dented, eye bulging. The wound smoothed out a second later as he applied the reverse curse technique to it. Remarkable. He'd only just discovered how to use it, and already he was a prop. So you do have one of those, huh? He turned his head and spat blood. Cheeky bastard. What else you got? A fist found his chin and sent him hurtling into the air, perforating a nearby cloud. Huh. He flew. The reprieve was short-lived. Naruto. A wild shout came from above. Dodge this next one if you can. Now what was he up to? He squinted up past a pair of broken-down pillars with a frown. Something was shining up there, something bright. What? Another red or blue? No, that was a different color. Almost like a unison between the two. His eyes widened as he realized what, exactly, he was looking at. Not in horror, but sheer childish delight. Purple. I've never seen anyone who could do it before. Let it be known that Satoru Gojo was not the first Gojo of the Gojo clan Uzumaki Naruto had encountered. Far from it. He was merely the most recent. It bears repeating. He had lived through the years, watching as the era of the shinobi gave way to that of the Jujutsu sorcerer never once sealed away, watching humanity as they became sorcerers. Even in the Heian era. In fact, the purple technique originally stemmed from something he'd once shown a Jujutsu sorceress in a moment of boredom. This was that technique. Watered down, perhaps, but he recognized the motion behind it. He spread his arms wide, grinning ear to ear. Don't hold back. A flicker of motion behind him was his only warning. That's my line, you whiskered bastard. His neck twisted, red eyes widening. Gojo reappeared behind him, 2 fingers pressed against his thumb, shining with searing light. His expression was serene, blank, even. There was no hint of that earlier despair he'd seen before. He extended his arm and brought it forward, fingers brushing his back, nearly digging into his spine. Imaginary technique, he intoned softly, hollow purple. He flicked his fingers forward a moment later. A soft chime filled Naruto's ears. The sound was almost gentle. It was also much too close, too fast, and too powerful for Naruto to evade in its entirety. He flared his chakra, hardened his body with cursed energy, stood his ground and braced. There was nothing else he could do. Even then he paid a dear price for his stubbornness. The hastily formed sphere blasted a hole through his torso, obliterated his right arm, ribs, a lung, and half his heart with it. Pain seared through him and he stumbled forward, gasping. A hand reflexively clutched at the massive tear in his torso and came away bloody. He rasped aloud. Not used to see this much of my own blood anymore. Come to think of it, if he hadn't intervened, this would be Toji dying here. He tiled his head back and breathed out a sigh. Bastard. Fushiguro owed him for this. Sorry, Yoshino. I'm sleepy. His eyes closed. Yoshino Nagi looked up, clutching her son in her arms. For a moment, she'd felt something. Naruto? ... Is that all? Gojo alighted before Naruto's still standing form, face lit with elation ... then anger, followed by confusion now when his adversary refused to move. He expected a witty quip of some sort, some cheeky retort, maybe a bruising backhand as the immortal rounded on him and continued their battle. He thought himself prepared for whatever came next. This was Naruto, after all. Bastard loved living almost as much as he loved ramen. He thrived on chaos and did what he pleased, when he pleased, to whom he pleased. But he wasn't moving now, was he? He'd gone deathly still where he stood, eyes closed, head tilted back toward the sky. A lonely gust of wind blew through the courtyard, ruffling his hair. He didn't move, didn't react. He just stood there, still as stone and thrice as infuriating, wearing that small self-same smile of his, almost as if he'd... No, that wasn't possible. And yet he continued to bleed from that massive hole in his body, blood dribbling down his crimson pants to pool at his feet. Was he dead? Gojo nudged him. No, that couldn't be it. Another poke, and he didn't budge. No. 1,000 times no. He shouldn't have died from that. Oi. He grabbed him by the shoulder and shook him. Naruto, snap out of it. Wake the hell up already. The blonde swayed on his feet ... and his remaining arm struck like a viper to seize his wrist. Gojo reeled back. He'd been had. That cheeky bastard, playing dead, drawing him in. That hurt like hell. The whiskered warrior hissed. Now it's my turn. Clawed fingers bit down into Satoru's sleeve, drawing blood. Domain expansion. With a burst of desperate strength, Gojo swore and ripped his arm free. Too little, too late. He was too close, and there was no way to escape. All around them, the world boiled black, then white, followed by red, sealing them off from the rest of the world in a perfect, circular sphere. The hand grabbing his arm vanished, taking Naruto with it. He whirled in confusion and found himself standing in an empty expanse, his friend turned foe turned rival nowhere to be seen. Until a low whistle caught his ear. He pivoted and found Naruto sat atop a giant red fox, wounds even now closing. Phew, that was a close one. A wild grin split his face. That almost killed me, you bastard. He threw his head back and hollered his laughter at the heavens before placing a fist upon his chin. I hadn't realized the Gojo clan finally found a way to replicate that trick I showed them ages ago. Your ancestors must be so proud. A bead of sweat ran down Satoru's brow. Trick, where do you think hollow purple came from? Naruto leaned back, lounging atop the slumbering fox like a king upon his throne. Who do you think first gave them idea to smash cursed energy against positive energy and create a sphere like that? Wait, but that would mean no, never mind that right now. The past was the past. More importantly, the bastard had a domain. Of course he had a domain. He'd been around during Sukuna's era, hadn't he? Why hadn't he seen this coming beforehand? Maybe he had. Maybe he'd simply chose to ignore it. Maybe this was his own fault. All right, then. Naruto stretched as the last of his wounds sealed shut. This was fun, but if that's all you've got, you're going to lose, now. Gojo gulped despite himself. Is that so? Buy time. Think. In a domain, any attack by its owner was imbued with a sure hit effect. That much he knew, which meant he was at a decided disadvantage here. He had the bare basics of his own domain in mind, but nothing concrete. It was incomplete. Shoddy work. Ugly at best. While his awakening may have opened his mind to a great many things, it couldn't simply grant him the elusive pinnacle of Jujutsu sorcery off the bat. Using what he did have now would only give him a hell of a headache, assuming he could pull it off at all. I can use purple at least 3 more times in my current state. He wasn't at his best right now, but neither was Naruto. He'd expended a lot of energy fighting Toji and still more slaughtering those cultists. Maybe if he kept his distance. I enjoyed myself, the immortal tittered one last time. So let me show you ... the origin of that technique. Naruto brought his hands together and a spark of wickedly dark light ignited between his palms. Could light be dark? As he looked on it coalesced within his fingers, 2 different colors rapidly forming a singular sphere of pure energy. Whatever it was, it reminded him of his red and blue mixed together. Oh shit, this is what purple is based on. The blonde held a finger, beaming at him. My chakra and Kuramas, blue and red, smashed together to create purple. Gojo breathed, grinning incredulously as the sphere swelled. Oi, you old bastard. Just how long have you been around? Well, you people call it purple. Mine's quite different. And then his smile faded, allowing him to glimpse the core of steel beneath his ever-present humor. If you have any tricks left, use them now. You won't survive if this hits you head-on. Panic hardened into resolve in Gojo's chest. A headache would be the least of his worries if he got hit with that. Screw it. He grinned, overcoming his fear. Not like I've got anything left to lose. Naruto sensed the rise of his cursed energy just before he did ... and made no effort to impede him whatsoever. There it is. He cackled. That's more like it. Show me what you've got, Gojo Satoru. Domain expansion. He swung a hand up and formed a seal. Infinite void. The world twisted, painting itself black, white, then black again. He'd been right. It was ugly, incomplete, not finished. But it was enough. Reality twisted around them as their domains clashed in the center, fighting for dominance, all negating the sure hit. Their wills slammed against one another, and with it, he felt Limitless slam back into place. Naruto cried out in pain. Gojo looked up to see his foe still perched upon the sleeping fox, now bleeding fro his eyes and nose, but still conscious ... and grinning from ear to ear. Now that's more like it. You gave me a damn migraine with that. His hands swept forward, bringing the massive sphere to bear upon him. ... Now make sure you focus on that reversed curse technique of yours ... or you'll die. Gojo flared his cursed energy, twisted to the side, and fired off another purple at maximum strength. Naruto's tailed beast blasted forth to meet it. Imaginary purple met it head-on. Together, the techniques clashed in the center of their domains and... Wait a minute, why am I on the ground? Gojo raised his head from where he lay and blinked, trying to make sense of things. He could feel himself already healing, his body mending, the icy coldness of the reversed curse technique surging through his soul as it struggled to regrow flesh and bone and organs. It took him a moment to realize why he was recovering the latter. When he looked up, his heart sank into his stomach. ... What was left of it? Hell, was that his torso standing up there? Thankfully he was already well on his way to growing another one. He'd begun focusing solely upon that the moment his imaginary purple broke down, upon pushing himself to the very pinnacle of his ability. Dodging was impossible, so he'd turned all his attention onto the reverse curse technique once more, determined to subconsciously regenerate the damage the moment it registered. And he'd succeeded. Akari would have been proud. Still, he didn't think he could pull off something like that again anytime soon. His head was killing him and he knew just how close he'd come to death. Without the reverse curse technique he would have perished on the spot. Even then, regrowing his entire lower torso hurt like hell. A shadow fell over him. You really are something, regrowing half your body. I thought that might kill you. It nearly did. He'd pushed himself to infinity and beyond, and even then ... it nearly hadn't been enough. The blonde bastard could have finished him. Still could, here and now, while he was growing back the last of his legs. But he didn't. That rattled Gojo's confidence as only Toji had before. Naruto made a sign with his fingers and let the domain drop. With its release, the last of the setting sun spilled through to shine down upon them both. But with it came a different kind of darkness. It creeped down into his very soul, infecting his every thought. ... Why'd you let me live? He stared up at him. Because I'm weak. It couldn't be. Because if he wasn't strong, he wasn't Satoru Gojo, and if he wasn't Satoru Gojo, then who was he? You need to stop that. A hand smacked him upside the head, driving those thoughts right out his skull. I let you live because we're friends. That's it. That's the reason you're alive. Now get up, put your big boy pants on, get stronger, and kick my ass. ... Just like that. Yup. 5 firm fingers clasped his and dragged him to his feet. There's always someone stronger out there. So get stronger, Satoru. Strong enough to kill me. A bitter laugh tumbled out of him. Do you want to die that badly? An elbow sank into his ribs. I want a challenge and you'll be that someday. You and maybe Gito if he tries hard enough. So surpass me. Throughout heaven and earth, you alone are the honored one. Nothing can change that. He winked. But there's nothing wrong with getting a little help every now and again, is there? Just get stronger, huh? Was that really all there was to it? Alright, I have just one more thing to say. Sure thing. The berserk blonde beamed. Gojo slugged him. It was a punch wholly devoid of cursed energy, but it still snapped his head back and sent a tooth whistling through the air. You nearly killed me, a bastard. Naruto delivered the same courtesy. He started it, Gojo. In a matter of moments, they were at it again, trading blows like pros. And now they're punching one another. Somebody stop those two. Hito took a good long look at the dueling duo, winced now ... and sat down. I think ... not. Nanami mirrored him with a weary sigh. I'm not getting involved in that. What about you, Haibara? Haibara crossed both arms before his face. Nope. Even I'm not dumb enough to put myself between those two. Yudoheim flung up her arms with an aggravated shout. Honestly, you three. She looked to the left. Mei, please, talk some sense into. Her fellow sorceress was munching on popcorn. I'm sorry, did you say something? Am I the only sane one here? Someone knocked at her door. Yoshino Nagi looked up from the sofa, bottle in hand. She knew she shouldn't be drinking. Really, she shouldn't. But she was just so nervous. Trembling fingers found the latch and unlocked the door, fumbling for the doorknob now. She got it on the third try and peeked through the gap. A familiar face stared back at her. Bright eyes and blonde hair, whiskered cheeks, dimpled now in the slightest of smiles. He looked tired. He smelled worse, like he'd just come straight from a fight tonight. His clothes didn't look all that much better. They were covered in blood and full of holes. ... But he'd kept his promise. Hey, Naruto smiled for her. May I come in? She craned her neck back and looked toward the stairs. Quietly, now. I just put Junpei down for bed. His smile grew an inch, weary, but just as she remembered. Then we'll have to be quiet. Yoshino sniffed. You smell awful. Shower first, then you can see your son. He leaned on the door, smiling down at her. Mind if I use yours? Just like that, something sparked in her heart. She remembered fond times in that shower. Humming softly, she stepped away. ... and let him back into her life. Naruto closed his eyes, pinched the bridge of his nose, inhaled deeply, held his breath, and exhaled in a forceful sigh. ... What the hell is this? It should have been a simple job. A favor for Suguru to help him get back on his feet. He'd taken it on a whim, if only because it gave him an excuse to go for a walk. Stretch his legs, you know. He liked the domestic life as much as any parent, but even now 2 years after the fact, a man needed to stretch his legs every now and again. Guido had been happy to babysit little Junpei in return for this, which brought him to the present moment. 2 girls twins sat before him in a cage, framed by flickering candlelight. Had that been the end of it, he might have managed to restrain some semblance of his temper. But it wasn't now, was it? They were, the both of them, battered and beaten and bruised, clutching at each other for dear life. Really, they were only a little older than his son, and it looked like someone had cut one of them, tried to set the other on fire. Isn't it obvious? An old, nearsighted geezer brayed at him in response to his earlier question. These 2 are the cause of the incidents plaguing our village. They're insane. They attacked us with their inexplicable power. We were certain they were the ones responsible for the disappearances, but their parents wouldn't give them up, so we all banded together and dragged them out their house. That's right. An equally annoying crone snarled his ways. My grandson was almost killed by these 2. One of the girls gasped. The other found her voice at last. That's not fair. He tried to. Shut up, you monsters. We should have given the 2 of you to the fire the moment you were born. These are children, you idiot, not monsters. Naruto looked away from the wooden cage. Where are their parents now? The portly man beside him bridled. Dead, as they should be. Those 2 are the source of our village woes. It was only right we put them down. Something ugly curdled in what passed for his soul. Idiots, the lot of them. Sometimes he forgot how stupid humanity could be. He could see the vein pulsing in the old fool's neck. A flick of his fingers and his world would run red. No, don't lash out. He'd promised Suguru he would be on his best behavior, just this once. And what proof do you have? He forced a fractured smile to his face. What proof do we need? They're responsible for it all. That's impossible, he heaved a sigh. I killed the curse responsible for this disappearances. These 2 barely have enough power to harm each other, let alone a grown adult. Preposterous. The old man didn't listen to reason, nor did that nattering old nag. If you won't kill them, then we will. The smaller of the 2 piped up. Grandpa, please. Didn't do anything wrong. Quiet. The man kicked the bars of the cage, causing them to shrink back. Not a word from you. This was their grandfather, which meant the woman was likely their grandmother. Right, that does it. He decided inwardly, looking back to the whimpering girls. You done goofed. You see, he finally understood things, now. Restraint was meaningless here. Useless. Static crawled over his thoughts, sending a chill shooting down his spine. This was just like that, wasn't it? That day in the temple. These 2 and this whole village. They were just a bunch of monkeys. Something began to fray in the back of his mind. I have a son. Did you know that? The crone frowned. Junpei's a little younger than them. He turned his back on the humans, presenting his back to the old hag and the senile old man. This isn't the life I wanted for him. His lips moved, every so slowly, mouthing a quick set of words to the girls, words the elders could neither see nor hear. Relax, it's all right, I'll save you. But they could. They were special. They looked up at him with wide eyes. The smaller of the 2 dared a tentative blink, the tiniest of nods. Still smiling, Naruto looked back to the elders. Everyone, let's step outside, shall we? Perhaps some fresh air will cool our heads. He knew it wouldn't. He simply didn't want the children to see what came next. Ushering them out, he waited patiently until the door closed behind them. That's much better. The moment they were out of sight, he dropped his facade and the smile with it. I can finally stop pretending. The old man bridled. What are you on about? Red eyes rounded on him. Silence. He slashed a hand backward, casually obliterating the man's skull before he could finish speaking. Blood spattered the wall in grisly relief. He was dead before his body struck the floor. He made sure to stomp down on him with cursed energy just to be sure he wouldn't come back as a cursed spirit. You never knew, you know. Blank red eyes settled upon the woman beside him. What was it you said about those girls? His voice sounded calm to his ears, almost eerily so, as he loped toward her. You should have burned them when they born. Well, then. She tried to flee. He blocked her with one arm and loomed over her, bringing his face close to hers. What's wrong? You were talking a good game before. Where did all that confidence go? He experienced a moment of crystal clear clarity just then. Am I the bad guy here? While he was distracted, the cruel crone's mind finally broke. She shrieked out in fear and turned to flee, only to burst into blue flame not a heartbeat later. She fell to the floor, shrieking, flinging herself around in a mad frenzy, trying to put the blaze out. He left her to that, uncaring as she expired, as the fire from her body caught on the wooden floor and began to engulf the room. It was well within his power to put it out, of course, but he didn't. He was done putting out fires. Siras. She appeared behind him silently. Break out the cannon. He gestured lazily. Kill him all. Credit where it was due, his police girl hesitated, just a little. Are you sure? Oddly enough, her question calmed him. It meant she still had her humanity, even now. He patted her head and smiled. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Wipe them out. All of them. If this village was full of superstitious close-minded idiots who would happily murder two harmless children to make themselves ... then this village shouldn't exist. He could the negativity around them, the mistrust, the ire, the hate, that small-minded pettiness he'd come to despise over the centuries, always tolerating, always ignoring, never acting against. No more of this, not one single second more. He'd wipe this place clean off the map, erase all the stupid monkeys that lived here, and maybe, just maybe, the world would be a better place for it. If the higher-ups complained, he'd kill them too. He'd kill anyone who allowed this kind of cruelty to exist in this world. Time to go for a walk. After all, they chose violence first. It was only fair he respond in kind then, no. Opening the door once more, he marched over to the wooden cage. Another flick of his fingers shattered the bars, freeing the occupants within. Well, aren't the two of you just adorable? He crouched down before the twins with a smile. What are your names? Hinako, the smaller girl mumbled. Mimiko, answered the other, warily meeting his eyes. All right then. He patted their heads. You're my kids now. How's that sound? The twins looked to one another. Mimiko found her voice first. Where did the bad people go? Daddy sent them somewhere far her way. He laid a hand on each of their hands. Now, I'm gonna have you two take a nap while I clean up outside. He raised his voice to mask the screams echoing just outside. The slaughter had begun, and it wouldn't do for these innocent little angels to hear it now, would it? When you wake up, you'll be somewhere safe and warm. You'll even have a new mother and a little brother. How does that sound? Himiko and Mimiko nodded quickly at that, eagerly even. He smiled at his new daughters. Good girls. Now, sleep. Tenjin couldn't claim to understand humanity these days. There had been a time when they'd made sense to her. After all, she'd been human herself once. But these days they were a mystery to her, the inner machinations of their mind an enigma, one that seldom made sense. Yet there was one thing she knew. Sometimes, humans could be crueler than any curse. She knew what he had done. Why he'd done it, since the moment he did it. Oh, Naruto, what have you done? As though summoned by those very words, something tore through the ceiling above her. An overwhelming presence behind her heralded the arrival of an old ally. Of course he'd gotten past her barriers. No, he'd ripped right through him to find her. Always the impatient one. That much hadn't changed even after all these years. He, at least, was a constant in her life. Hello, old friend. She turned to face him, idly noting the blood stains on his shirt. It's so nice to see you again. Have you been well? He smiled at her. It was not a nice smile. Sit your ass down, Tenjin. This talk's long overdue. Is it? She grinned nervously. Whatever are we talking about? Sit the hell down before I eat you. She sat with a squeak. Meep. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.